"When you put this on," the old woman said quietly, "your body will change into a kind of beauty no man has ever laid eyes on. But you must promise me one thing: never remove it." Sabrina opened her mouth to ask what would happen if she did, but before the words could leave her lips, the old woman faded away, dissolving into the darkness like mist carried off by the night wind. One moment she was there, the next she was gone. Left alone, Sabrina stood frozen, her hands shaking as she held the unfamiliar undergarment. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears, not with joy, but with dread. Hardship was something she understood well. "When you put this on," the old woman said quietly, "your body will change into a kind of beauty no man has ever laid eyes on. But you must promise me one thing: never remove it." Sabrina opened her mouth to ask what would happen if she did, but before the words could leave her lips, the old woman faded away, dissolving into the darkness like mist carried off by the night wind. One moment she was there, the next she was gone. Left alone, Sabrina stood frozen, her hands shaking as she held the unfamiliar undergarment. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears, not with joy, but with dread. Hardship was something she understood well. It had followed her since childhood. But magic? That belonged to fireside tales whispered by elders at dusk, not to a girl like her. Yet Sabrina's life had never followed ordinary rules. She was born into poverty in the small, quiet village of Ugget, a place where everyone knew her name but rarely spoke it with warmth. Her body was narrow and fragile, like dry reeds ready to snap, and her face was the villagers' favorite subject of cruel laughter. "God must have rushed when he made her," they would mutter. While other women in Ugget carried full figures that swayed like drumbeat during festivals, Sabrina slipped through life like a passing shadow, silent, overlooked, unwanted. She learned early how to lower her gaze, how to make herself smaller, how to disappear in plain sight. But beneath the ridicule and neglect, something unseen waited patiently. Sabrina was born with a secret, with a rare gift, a blessing she never asked for, and one she barely understood as a child. Her mother revealed it in a trembling whisper on her final night, when breath was leaving her body and truth had nothing left to hide. Any man who took Sabrina as his wife would rise from obscurity into abundance. His life would open like fertile land after rain. Wealth, favor, and success would follow him wherever he went. But Sabrina never spoke of it. She was not chasing gold or comfort. What she longed for was something far rarer: love. Honest love. She wanted a man who would not recoil from her appearance or measure her worth by her body. She dreamed of someone who would see past her thin frame and uncelebrated face and choose her because of the kindness living in her heart. The years slipped by. No suitor came. Even men who were desperate to marry crossed the road when they saw her. Some spoke their cruelty without shame. "If Sabrina were the last woman alive, I would rather die alone," they would say. They had no idea that turning her away was the same as turning away fortune itself. Sabrina accepted her loneliness without bitterness. She cultivated yams behind her small hut. She walked to the river alone each morning, balancing her pot in silence. At night, she swayed gently to songs only she could hear, dancing softly within the safety of her room. Yet, even in solitude, she guarded one thing carefully: hope. Then came the Yam Festival. The village burst into color. Drums thundered, feet stamped the earth, laughter spilled into the air like music. Everyone gathered in celebration. Everyone except Sabrina. As always, she stood apart, watching from a distance, unseen and uninvited. It wasn't her place, she told herself, or so she believed. choice. No one wanted to stand beside her. While women spun joyfully in circles and men bragged loudly between bursts of laughter, Sabrina remained alone near a fading bonfire, its weak flames casting restless shadows across the ground. She watched them move, flicker, and disappear, much like the way people seem to forget she existed. Then something unexpected happened. A young man stepped away from the crowd and began walking toward her. His name was Okesie, a well-known palm wine tapper, admired not for loudness or pride, but for his steady nature and quiet strength. He was handsome in an unassuming way, with eyes that held patience rather than judgment. When the villagers noticed where he was headed, the air seemed to freeze. Elbows nudged ribs, murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some laughed cruelly, others whispered sharp words meant to wound. But Okesie paid them no attention. "Good evening," he said gently. Startled, Sabrina glanced behind her, sure he must be speaking to someone else. "Me?" she asked softly. "Yes," he replied. "You." Those two words slipped into her heart like warm sunlight after a long harmattan season. They began to talk and kept talking. Okesie never looked away. He did not smirk, fidget, or search for an excuse to leave. He listened, truly listened, and for the first time in her life, Sabrina felt visible. When the festival ended and the drums grew quiet, Okesie offered to walk her home along the narrow path leading to the village's edge, where her small hut stood alone. She tried to refuse, but he shook his head with a gentle smile. "I want to make sure you get home safely," he finished. And from that night on, nothing remained the same. Each evening, just before the sun dipped below the horizon, Okesie would appear at Sabrina's door, carrying a small gourd of freshly tapped palm wine. Sabrina would bring out her smooth, curved wooden cups, and together they would sit beneath the open sky as it burned orange and gold. They laughed easily, exchanged stories, teased each other gently, and shared silences that felt just as comforting as words. What began as simple companionship grew deeper with time. Slowly, naturally, beautifully. Love took root. Not the loud, performative kind that demanded attention, but true love, the kind that settles into the heart and feels like home. The love Sabrina had waited for her entire life. Okesie loved her sincerely, not for beauty, not for riches, not for what she might one day become. He loved her voice when she laughed, her calm presence, her quiet strength, and the way she listened with her whole heart. And Sabrina, in return, offered him the part of herself she had guarded for years, the piece shaped by pain, hope, and patience. When they finally announced their marriage, the village nearly fell apart with disbelief. How could a man like Okesie choose Sabrina? What kind of spell has she placed on him? This love cannot be normal. The whispers followed them wherever they went. Men shook their heads as they passed. Women clicked their tongues in disapproval. Young girls mocked Sabrina openly, laughing without restraint. But Okesie held her hand even tighter each time it happened. And Sabrina smiled because for the first time in her life, she possessed something no one could steal from her: happiness. 2 months into the marriage, the impossible began to unfold. Okesie's palm wine trade changed overnight. Buyers arrived from neighboring villages, then from places even farther away. People no longer came with small calabashes. They came with carts, ordering in large quantities. His name spread like wildfire. Wealth poured into his home so quickly it left the villagers uneasy. How can a simple tapper rise like this? What power is working for him? Jealousy crept into their hearts like poison. Before long, whispers turned into certainty. The village uncovered Sabrina's secret, the gift she had never spoken of, and suddenly, everything reversed. The same men who once mocked her stared at her with longing. Those who refused to greet her now lowered their heads in respect. The men who swore they would die unmarried rather than choose her now wished desperately they could trade places. But it was too late. Sabrina belonged to the man who loved her when she had nothing. Then came the night the rain refused to be gentle. Thunder split the sky with violent cracks. Wind screamed through the village like restless spirits. Sabrina jolted awake, her heart racing, and realized the door stood wide open. Okesie was gone. No footprints, no signs of struggle, no shout, no farewell. Only silence. And somewhere beyond the storm, something terrible had begun. Some villagers would later claim they saw shadows moving through the rain that night. Some villagers claimed spirits had carried him away. Others insisted the gods were displeased and had demanded a sacrifice. A few whispered more darkly, saying jealousy had pushed someone to commit an unspeakable act. But Sabrina refused to believe he was gone forever. Her heart broke into fragments too small to collect, yet one truth remained firm inside her. Okesie was alive, somewhere,
Sabrina
waiting.
had become the most desired woman in all of Uki. And the once admired maidens, the same ones who had ridiculed her, watched from a distance, their eyes burning with envy. They murmured bitterly among themselves. One day, her secret will be exposed. She must be using something. No woman becomes this wanted without dark help. What does she have that we do not? They whispered, their voices sharp with resentment. Sabrina heard the rumors. She felt the stares, but she did not smile in pride. Her heart still belonged to only one man. And somewhere beneath her clothing, hidden from every jealous eye, the old woman's warning waited, silent, patient, and dangerous. Not, some whispered, daring each other to speak aloud. A few even mustered courage, stepping forward to ask, "Sabrina, what is your secret? What is this charm you use? Tell us." But Sabrina only smiled, a soft, knowing smile, and walked away without a single word. They could never have guessed the truth. Her blessing was not a gift she had sought. It was a burden forced upon her by the gods, a power that brought admiration, yes, but also endless pain. Among all the men who begged for her hand, one stood apart, Dele, the fisherman. Dele, whose words flowed smoother than the sweetest mango nectar. Every evening he would take his place beside her hut, pretending to weep quietly. He brought roasted fish, fresh crabs, and small carved trinkets, tokens meant to win her heart. "Sabrina," he said one night, dabbing at his carefully feigned tears, "my heart beats only for you. Let me love you. Let me replace your sorrow with joy." Sabrina's heart, worn and weary, hesitated. She was tired of being alone, tired of being mocked, tired of waiting for Okesie, who had not returned. And so after months of sweet words, after so many evenings of careful attention and gentle persistence, she finally agreed. She married Dilly, and for a time, he played the part perfectly. He pretended to love her, pretended to cherish her, acted as if she were a blessing sent straight from the gods. But the moment her gift began to work, the moment his nets overflowed with fish each morning, the moment wealth poured into his hands and people began calling him the richest fisherman across 3 villages, Dele's true colors were revealed. He stopped coming home on time. He stopped tasting the meals she prepared. He stopped sharing the nights beside her. Then, one scorching afternoon, the truth tore through the village like wildfire. Dele had run off with a young woman from Ugget town, a girl with round hips, radiant skin, and laughter that rang like bells. He left Sabrina behind without a word, without shame, without a single backward glance. For the second time in her life, her heart shattered. Word of her misfortune spread quickly. Soon, the entire region knew her story. If you want wealth, the villagers said, marry Sabrina, but don't expect beauty. She has none. And so the men came, not for love, not for companionship, not even for respect, but for quick fortune. One by one, they asked for her hand. One by one, she married them. Not because she wanted to, not because her heart was free, but because she was exhausted. She was tired, tired of being alone, tired of the mockery, tired of nights filled with silence and tears. One by one, the men she married rose from poverty into wealth. Her blessing touched their lives, filled their homes, lined their pockets, and made them proud. And one by one, they left her. Some ran off with women more beautiful than her. Some disappeared without a trace, just like Okeshie. Others never returned after tasting prosperity, leaving nothing behind but whispers and rumors. The village of Wete began to murmur once more, but now the tone was different. Fear crept into their voices. They said, there is something strange about her. Every man she marries becomes rich, then vanishes. Maybe she is cursed. Maybe she is a spirit. And yet the men kept coming, some driven by greed, some by foolishness, some by desperation. And every time Sabrina gained a husband, the village held its breath, waiting for the moment he would disappear. Her heart became like a cracked calabash, unable to hold joy. She stopped stepping outside. She stopped smiling. She stopped believing she deserved love. Her heart became a secret hiding place, a silent grave where hope went to die. Some villagers pitied her. Most mocked her openly. They called her the beautiful blessing wrapped in an ugly body. They said it as if it were a joke, but to Sabrina it was a knife twisting in her heart. One night, when the moon hung low in the sky like a tired lantern, Sabrina slipped quietly out of the village. She was ready to leave Ugu forever. Her steps were heavy, each one weighed down by years of betrayal. Her eyes were swollen from long nights of crying. Her spirit, exhausted from carrying a blessing that only brought her pain, sought freedom. She walked along the narrow forest path where villagers said spirits roamed at night, when she encountered an old woman. Her hair was white, flowing like river foam. Her eyes glowed with something timeless, something that had seen centuries pass. She stared at Sabrina as though she had been waiting for this moment all her life. "Child," she said, her voice like wind over dry leaves, "beauty has punished you long enough. Take this." She stretched out a gnarled hand, holding a garment of silk that shimmered like water under the moonlight. "Wear it when the moon rises. You will become what the world respects." Sabrina hesitated. Fear prickled at her skin, but something stronger, something deep in her bones, pushed her forward. She took the garment. The old woman leaned closer, her breath cool against Sabrina's ear. "But," she whispered, her voice almost lost in the rustle of the trees, "remember, do not take off the garment, not for any reason." Before Sabrina could even ask what would happen if she did, the old woman vanished, like smoke swallowed by the night. Sabrina stood frozen, trembling, staring at the shimmering silk in her hands. Her heart raced with a mixture of fear and hope. She had known hardship her entire life, endured cruelty and loneliness, but magic belonged to stories whispered by elders around evening fires, never to ordinary girls like her. That night, under the pale silver light of the moon, Sabrina slipped into the enchanted garment and lay down to sleep. When morning came, everything changed. Her skin glowed like newly sprouted yam tubers. soft and vibrant, her body curved with a grace that seemed carved from sunlight. Her face shone as if the morning sun itself had kissed her, reflecting light like river water dancing in the dawn. She had become a beauty the world had never seen, so extraordinary that even the birds outside her window paused mid-song, as if stunned into silence. And when she stepped outside, the entire village seemed to hold its breath. Men carrying firewood froze mid-stride, eyes wide. Women pounding yam stopped mid-motion, their hands trembling. Children paused mid-play, staring with mouths agape. Sabrina had become a force of awe and wonder, a beauty that could not be ignored. Some screamed, some fainted, and all eyes stayed fixed on her. The woman they had once mocked, the woman they called ugly, the woman they avoided at every turn, now stood before them as if a goddess had descended from the heavens. Sabrina's beauty was beyond imagining, radiant, commanding, impossible to ignore. Suddenly, every man desired her, not for wealth, not for blessings, but for her sheer presence, her glow, her allure. They brought yam tubers, they brought jewelry. Some knelt, trembling, begging for her attention. But Sabrina only allowed herself a small, secret smile. The old woman's warning echoed in her mind. Beauty is a gift, but it always collects a price. She understood deep down that this transformation carried a cost, dark, hidden, and yet unknown. But one truth remained clear. This time, she would choose her own destiny. She would not be used by it.
Chief Oke's life was thrown into chaos, like a canoe caught in a furious storm. His cows fell ill and died, one after another. Creditors seized his lands. His business collapsed overnight. Even his car, once a symbol of power, broke beyond repair. Wealth that had seemed endless evaporated like morning dew under a scorching sun. Sabrina watched quietly as the proud chief she had married crumbled into a shadow of himself. Then one morning, the villager walked to a sight that shocked everyone. Chief Oke, once the richest and most respected man in Ugget, wandered the streets like a madman begging for food. His clothes were tattered, dust covered his feet, and his eyes shone with wild desperation. He begged anyone who would listen, and no one turned him away fast enough. Sabrina felt a chill in her chest. The warning of the old woman rang in her mind. Beauty is a gift, but it always collects a price. Ugget gasped. People whispered behind cupped hands. What kind of beauty is this? Why has wealth abandoned him? What does Sabrina carry? But Sabrina said nothing. She only watched, because deep in her heart, she already knew. The price of her extraordinary beauty was only beginning to reveal itself. Chief Oke's downfall spread through Ugget like wildfire. Behind mud huts, under the shade of mango trees, beside the evening fires, villagers whispered, not with mockery this time, but with fear. Her beauty destroys. Her blessing has turned to a curse. What kind of woman is this? Sabrina remained silent, watching the man who once dined with kings and walked with authority. The once mighty chief now wandered barefoot through the village. His wrapper hung in tatters around his waist. Saliva clung to the corners of his mouth. He begged for scraps like a madman, as if yesterday's glory had been erased from memory. Children hurled stones at him. Women chased him away with brooms. Men shook their heads, muttering curses and shaking in disbelief. But only Sabrina. Sabrina knew the truth. Chief Oke's downfall had begun the moment he married her. The same blessing that had lifted Okesie, the same gift that had made Dele rise before his betrayal, now it had twisted into something darker, something alive, something hungry.
And deep in her heart, Sabrina understood the truth she had long feared to admit. It was tied to the enchanted underwear the old woman had warned her never to remove. Soon, Chief Oke vanished. One morning, he simply walked out of Ugget and no one ever heard from him again. His disappearance only added fuel to the villagers' fear and whispers. Yet still, despite everything, the men kept coming. Some bragged, "Let me become rich first, before her curse claims me, I will run away." Others said, "If wealth comes at the price of madness, so be it. Greed is louder than fear." And so, the line of suitors stretched on, day after day, year after year, each drawn by the allure of her beauty and the promise of fortune, each daring the curse she carried. Then one fateful evening, a man appeared in the village. He wore a long white robe that glimmered faintly in the setting sun. Dust swirled around his feet as he walked slowly, deliberately. Each step carried power. Each movement demanded attention. The villagers paused, holding their breath. Even Sabrina, who had seen her gift's consequences time and time again, felt her heart quicken. The villagers gasped. Women pressed their hands to their mouths. Men stumbled back, dropping their tools. Children hid behind their mothers, eyes wide with fear and wonder. As he drew closer, the shock hit the square like a bolt of lightning. It was Orchestre, Sabrina's first love, the only man who had ever truly loved her, the only heart that had chosen her before the world ever noticed beauty in her. He was alive. News raced through the village faster than wildfire across dry grass. Sabrina heard it and ran, her wrapper flying behind her like a banner in the wind. When she reached the square and saw him, her legs gave way. She fell to her knees at his feet, tears streaming down her face. You are alive," she sobbed. "I knew you were alive." Orchestre lifted her gently, his hands trembling as they cupped her face, the same face he had loved before the world ever noticed beauty in it. "My Sabrina," he whispered, "I came back to you." Then he told the villagers the story. It had been Dele, the fisherman who had betrayed Sabrina, who had kidnapped him, driven by jealousy. Dele had left Orchestre bound in the bush for months. He would have perished there alone and forgotten, if not for fate's intervention. "But hunters from a neighboring village found me, half-conscious and near death," sobbed Orchestre. "They saved my life. I stayed away to heal and to stay safe. But I could not hide forever. I had to return to the only woman I have ever truly loved." Sabrina's heart trembled. She longed to throw herself into his arms and to never let go. But she knew the truth. If she accepted him, if she let him near her, the curse would strike him too. He would suffer like the others, lost, broken, destroyed. And she would rather die than bring pain to the only man who had ever loved her. So she did the only thing she could. She returned to the forest, the same forest where she had first met the mysterious old woman. The wind caught cold against her skin. The trees whispered secrets as though the earth itself were watching. And there, beneath the ancient tree, the old woman appeared once more. Sabrina fell to her knees, sobbing, her body shaking. "Please," she begged, "take back the garment, take back this curse. My love has returned, and I cannot let him destroy him." The old woman nodded slowly, her eyes reflecting centuries of knowing. "I knew this day would come," she said, her voice low and older than the earth itself. "The hearts of men are wicked and selfish, and power has a way of testing love. You must be wise, child." "Your beauty was given to punish the greedy," she said softly, resting a gentle hand on Sabrina's shoulder. "It was for those who sought you, not for love, but for gain. But the one who truly loves you has returned. The curse has fulfilled its purpose." She pointed to Sabrina's waist. "Go home, remove the garment, burn it tonight. Your suffering ends." Sabrina wept, tears of relief and gratitude streaming down her face. She thanked the old woman, her voice choked with emotion, and ran home faster than she had ever moved in her life. That night, she took off the enchanted underwear, the cursed beauty that had brought both admiration and pain, and threw it into the fire. The flames devoured it in moments, and in the blink of an eye, her body shifted. The radiant glow faded, the curves melted away, the goddess-like beauty vanished. She became herself again, the thin, gentle girl with kind eyes and a heart that had always loved too deeply. When she stepped outside, Okesia was waiting. He opened his arms, and she ran into them, finally feeling the safety and warmth she had longed for all her life. They married quietly, without crowds, without gifts, without the noise of the world. Just the two of them, hand in hand, heart to heart. And together, they lived happily ever after. The end.